About a year and a half ago, I had an accident that changed everything. On my way home, I was hit by a food truck. I Gmod ragdolled across concrete for 5 solid seconds. It was an experience that, while physically painful, as you can guess, cracked more than just a bone in my hand. It cracked open the reality of time, health, and how fragile our bodies are. I was lucky though. In fact, the only thing that I walked away with was a bad fracture in my thumb, but the time followed was filled with introspection. Recovery is a strange thing. It's as if your body says, slow down, observe, question. When you cannot use your dominant hand fully, each action becomes a metaphysical confrontation with your own limitations. Akin to what Plato might describe as the material realm holding us back from the higher truth. We live most of our days now ignoring the vulnerability of our existence, but the truth is often laid bare when we face injury, illness, or confront a strong reality. When you cannot use your dominant hand fully, every action feels like a reminder of your own limit. And I think there's a lesson in this. Our bodies, no matter how much we take them for granted, really think about that, have a limit. But they also give us a chance to reflect and grow. With this unexpected free time, I was looking for something to do. Watching YouTube and reading various religious and philosophical books every day became boring. So I turned to something similar, connected, but new. And that was creating Warpaint in the video game Team Fortress 2. I had already grown weary of competitive play, and there was no chance of competing presently with a thumb injury that left me physically limited. But creatively, a door was open. It started small. I simply wanted to try my hand. That's a bad phrase. I wanted to try making a piece of the game. That was the first lesson. When you're stuck in recovery, it helps to pour yourself into something, to keep your mind working, even when your body is healing. You feel a new purpose instead of just rotting away. It's almost rejuvenating. It's like waiting on the main quest to pop up in an RPG. You know, like in a Bethesda game, when it needs to be a certain time before you can start a mainline quest. So you go side questing, and before you know it, in the middle of that side quest, the main quest is then open, and you were so carried away. I think it was Kant who spoke of the human mind's ability to transcend limitations through creativity. And here I was, experiencing and embodying that idea. The process of creating something new while constrained by physical limitations taught me the importance of learning again. To step back a second, that is a sad reality, learning again. But not for a specific goal, but for the sake of process. My failures in Warpaint design initially, and as always when you start anything, were plentiful. It's a concept that echoes the notion of habitation, repetition, and practice that lead to the development of skills. In each setback, I found a hidden joy in the process itself, discovering that patience and humility were the key ingredients in turning failure into success. Before I knew it, I was deep in the world of Warpaints. Photoshop and textures, I had zero experience, and there were so many things to learn. Orientation lock, seams, proper color correction, albedo sheen, oh, you need a mod for that, custom wear. This is new language for some, but each failure was a step towards, I wouldn't say mastery, but understanding. But as many of us realize, sometimes that's the best place to start. It wasn't about perfection, but about the process, learning, failing, adjusting, mainly failing. There were a lot of duds along the way, but like in anything, failing is following the path of success. It takes humility and patience to get anywhere. There's humility in learning something new, especially after injury, because you start to realize how interconnected effort and time truly are. Getting back to my busted thumb along the journey. At some point, when you're bound by your body's limitations, you have to ask yourself, am I using this time wisely, my time wisely? And more importantly, why am I doing this? There's a common phrase floating around the internet right now called rotting away, or, you know, It's interesting. I'm old, so I don't know how recent this is. I'm assuming like 2021, 2022. But I see people who post this in meme channels all the time, threads, whatever, dumping photos and memes with various characters from anime and Nintendo games rotting away. But I'd assume by definition, it's spending time in front of screens or games and doing basically what NEETs do. And I challenge that notion. Are you rotting? You watching, or are you giving yourself space to breathe? This might be a personal question to you. It kind of is, but I'd encourage you to reflect on how you use your time. Maybe not in a moralistic way, but with intention, right? As I was healing, I had a lot of those moments. It was good to find an outlet. Creating Warpaints became my outlet, my way to focus my energy on something creative, something that didn't just pass time, but filled it with purpose. And I wonder how many of us have forgotten to do that, to simply question why we do what we do each day. So here's the meat to my match regarding what I made and how. There were so many elements to consider. Textures, color theory, lighting, albedo shine again, what does that mean? Does it have orientation lock? Is it using a good base? Every step felt like an intricate dance of trial and error, and I learned more than I ever expected. No matter where you are in life or what limits are holding you back, there's always an opportunity to learn something new. And you only have to apply yourself and try understanding it to let it grasp you, and you end up finding something really interesting. This is obviously where taste comes from, but with, entertainment. And I would argue there's a bit of a difference in discerning taste regarding media, but media versus making your own movies or family horror films, or it's a little too different with what I'm going down the trail I'm talking about. If you want to know what I mean by all that, I'd recommend watching something that I frequently watched while working on Warpaints, which is James Rolfe Cinemassacre's Cinemassacre 200. The passion in that video will set your ass on fire. Warpaints, for me, became more than just a hobby. They were a way to keep moving forward when my body was telling me to stop. I still remember struggling to move my thumb. Simply rotating it around felt like I was trying to use a dysfunctional key in a lock. When you're trying to open your front door and you can't find the right key and the key just won't budge. Things like trying to rebind my keys to make navigating in-game and various online things easier. I even had to buy a wireless mouse with more buttons just so I could do things. There were moments when frustration got the better of me and I lost my cool, but it was through that struggle that I learned patience and humility. Each failed design became a question. Why did this one fail? Why did it get 50-50 on the workshop, and how can I improve it? It's a process of refining not only the art, but also the artists. And it's strange how much recovery teaches us about this patience. Recovery from failures, not just with our bodies, but with our minds, abilities, and expressions. The hardest part of this journey was probably learning to handle feedback with Warpaints and criticism. Some critiques were helpful, but others were biting. Socrates taught us once that wisdom comes from knowing what we do not know. In each piece of feedback, I found kernels of truth, separating constructive criticism from mere negativity. The sifting process is part of any artistic endeavor and reflection of life itself. Understanding what to take in and what to discard, much like the Stoic practice of focusing on what is merely within our control. It reminded me that we are not in control of how others perceive us or our work, but we are in control of how we respond. As I learned to detach from the outcome and focus more on the process, I found a deeper resilience in myself. I think this is similar to the Buddhist teaching of non-attachment, the idea that clinging to outcomes only leads to suffering. By focusing on the effort rather than the result, I discovered that true growth happens not when you succeed, but when you persevere in the face of failure. Now that I've emerged on the other side of health, both physically healed and in some sense creatively fulfilled, I am left with a question that transcends the act of creating Warpaints. How are you spending your time? This question is not new. It's been asked by thinkers across the sands of ages who saw time as a critical factor in the development of human potential. Time, they believed, was the canvas on which we paint our lives. And yet in the modern world, it feels as though time slips away from us, pulled by distractions and fleeting hedonistic pleasures. Are we living with intent, crafting lives of true meaning to us, or are we letting time shape us without thought? Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." And so I invite you again to reflect not just on how you use your time, but why. Are you or aren't you pursuing something that nurtures your soul? Or are you merely existing, letting the world keep sweeping you along? Are you focused on your own growth? Are you just keeping up with the world, living without real purpose? This question is common. It isn't just philosophical, but hopefully deeply personal. And the answer might be the key to unlocking the next chapter of your life. That thing you really want to do, give it a shot. Are you tending to the soul's quiet yearning for growth? Or have you become ensnared in the illusionary rhythms of the world, the matrix that seduces us into survival without purpose? The Greeks spoke of eudaimonia, the flourishing of the spirit, but have we traded that for mere survival? Have we forgotten this in favor of mere existence? In the vast currents of life, are you creating ripples of meaning, or have you lost sight of the divine order that once guided you? Time, after all, is the most elusive of all resources, slipping through our fingers like sand, unnoticed until we realize how little remains in the jar. It's not just a straight path, it's a cycle, repeating lessons until we learn them. The ancients understood time not merely as a linear progression, but as a cycle, an eternal return where moments of significance repeat until their lessons are learned. Have you grasped the deeper patterns in your life, or do you drift through them, unaware of their silent teachings? There is a mystery to the existence, one that beckons us to uncover its hidden layers exclusive to each of our own life stories. In the mundane, I can only encourage living with intent, shaping your destiny, as the alchemists of old sought to transmute base elements into gold. Or are you caught in the ceaseless flow, allowing time to shape you rather than seizing it with deliberate purpose? I want to be upfront here, no clickbait gimmicks. After months of late nights, countless revisions, and a lot of hard work, I was at my job a few weeks ago one afternoon when a friend messaged me before we were about to close, saying one of my Warpaints, Graphite Gripped, got into the game. It hit me. One of the last Warpaints I made before burning out, just like many others did when Valve stopped adding them consistently as what we thought during the summer. Graphite Gripped wasn't the Warpaint I thought would make it in. It wasn't even our best work, and by our, I mean my friend who does all the previews for me. They're great. I'd always wanted to make a carbon fiber themed Warpaint since I started. While I didn't nail the exact carbon fiber texture in the final design, or, it doesn't even look like carbon fiber, I think it turned out better in its own way. The black and white stripes gave it a clean, sharp look that felt unique to me. Even though it wasn't perfect, I'm content, and I always wanted a black and white Warpaint in the game, and now I got that, and for that I'm thankful. Now onto two others from the same collection that I wanted to talk about because I think they deserve a little spotlight on effort and the Warpaint process of making something. Centurion's Claim was inspired by my friend's invite team, Rome TF2. If you've been around TF2 competitive in the past few seasons, you might have recognized that name, Rome. You probably already know my friend I'm talking about. An early TF2, teams like Froyo Tech and whatever that other one was, I think it was Ronin, I don't remember, had Warpaints, and I wanted to create one for my friend's team. But the process wasn't easy. The community's feedback was mixed, and it took several iterations before we landed on something we were proud of. It started with their team logo, with a wood and kind of Roman bull-inspired design, with wood, gold, and brass and bronze. It evolved into something more Roman, more classical, with a gold shine and a deep green accent with an interesting pattern. Months of work and feedback went into this one. I'd say a month and a half. And while the original idea got lost, the final version stood strong, fitting well within TF2's theme, at least I think. Lastly, my personal favorite of the bundle was Leather Lethality. Initially, it was just a red and black Warpaint, team colored, so blue and black. Nothing special, black leather, team metals. But after talking with the community, and by community I mean the Painter's Workshop, shout out to everyone there who helped me with that, and the people I individually talked to, asking for feedback and refining it, we added gold trims and a shine that really made it pop. Sometimes all you need to do is ask for help from those a step ahead of you. There's something I learned through this process, whether in competitive or creating content. It's not about asking the best, but asking the people just above you. I think this is something Shage said in a VOD a long time ago. If you ever want to get better at TF2, you always ask the people above you, and not the people at the very top, because the people above you know how to get to where they are, and then you keep walking the stairs versus just being pulled up. Leather Lethality became something I'm genuinely proud of, and the help from everyone else made it what it is today. Thank you. At the end of the day, getting something into TF2 for me wasn't just about having a Warpaint in the game. It was about growth, learning skills I never thought I'd need or have, from graphic design to Photoshop to collaborating with better creators. This journey was about realizing that no time spent learning is ever wasted. For anyone watching this video, I want to leave you with this again. Reflect on how you're spending your time. Don't be afraid to dive into something new, even if it feels intimidating, too steep. You never know what you might learn or how you might be able to climb that barrier, or how it might change you when you reach the top. Remember, we have more control over how we spend our time than we think, and that we can process in our heads. Why not choose something that helps you grow? Lastly, a question for everyone. I haven't decided what item to put, Because you know how Valve gives you a community version of what you made. I haven't decided what to put the Warpaint on yet. I've main Soldier, as some of you know, for most of my TF2 hours. I love how it looks on Heavy's minigun. That's why the icon is of the minigun. If any of you have an idea what to put this Warpaint on, tell me below in the comments with anything else you want to reflect on or share. I always love reading the comments everyone shares. They're so inspiring to continue doing this. Thank you for all your time and support. Take care, and beware.